Cohen's testimony this week before three congressional committees, drawing comparisons, as you saw there, to testimony former White House counsel John Dean gave during the Watergate hearings in the early 1970s. His testimony was broadcast nationwide on all three major TV networks. Dean weighing in on the parallels this morning in a brand new New York Times op-ed saying, quote, "I was surprised by the number of people who surfaced to support my account. The same, I suspect, will happen for Michael Cohen. The mafia's code of omerta has no force in public service." John Dean's presentation back in 1973, however, was different from what we saw this week. Michael Cohen seemed to relish the role of exposing and taking shots at his former boss. Dean, who served as President Nixon's White House counsel, reluctantly implicated Nixon over 5 days of testimony, detailing not only Nixon's involvement, but his own in the cover-up of illegal activities orchestrated by the Nixon administration.
Did you tell him anything about your involvement in Watergate?
Yes, sir, I did, and I had on previous occasions to tell him that I felt that I was involved in an obstruction of justice, particularly after he had told me that I should report to him and made the comment to me that Haldeman and Ehrlichman were principals. That stuck in my mind so very clearly that I thought maybe he didn't understand everything that I was doing.
Mike Waldman, help us with the parallels here. You had a man there testifying, as a photographic memory, great recall of what had happened within the Nixon White House and the campaign. How good is the parallel? How good is the analogy?
Well, there's a strong analogy in that it is the first time since John Dean that an insider to a president has gone in public under oath and testified about a range of illegalities on national television. And that is a really big deal, and you never had that in other scandals like that. It was a little different in that John Dean, as you say, was forced by circumstances, yes. But so was Michael Cohen. I don't think neither of them would have done it without an FBI raid or two. But Dean focused just on the facts of what he was saying. But there's one parallel that we don't see in retrospect. People weren't sure whether to believe John Dean at the time. He was very credible. His recollections were very detailed. But a lot of people said, no, it's not true. The White House said, no, it's not true. It was only when later witnesses came out, and in that case, the almost absurd dramatic device of there being tapes that could prove whether he was telling the truth or not. Chances are there's evidence that we don't know about that will tell us whether or not some of the real revelations that Trump knew about the Russian hacking, the WikiLeaks beforehand, that he discussed hush money payments, just like with John Dean in the Oval Office. Those are things that can be documented in other ways too.
Christina, you look at this op-ed, and John Dean comments on the fact that they've both been in this uncomfortable position. There's a lot of discomfort that comes with going to testify against a position who's a very powerful figure, just inherent in the office. And then you have sort of other tendencies of those two presidents as well, shall we say. Your sense of the two parallels here, and at what sense can you gauge accurately the import of what happened this week? As Michael's saying, it took time for us to reckon with what John Dean had said and the importance of that. How quickly can we do it in this sense, do you think?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think, you know, there's a way in which hearings matter for a lot of reasons. They matter because they're public events, and they actually are there to kind of shine a light for the public and to educate the public. So I think the amount of time it takes for the hearing to kind of absorb into the public conversation takes a bit of time. But I think it's really important that in order to talk about, I mean, these are the two most criminal White Houses we've ever had. So given the criminality of these two spaces, or these two administrations, I think it's important for the public to come to understand the depth of that criminality. And so these hearings do an incredibly important job in terms of civic education for the public. If and when we ever get to impeachment, you have to bring the public along to finding that to be a legitimate act. And so hearings aren't just about, because they could do a lot of this in private. What's important about it publicly is that it's an important public educational moment. But the other thing I was thinking about with Dean versus Cohen is that the Trump administration traffics in humiliation. Like, they traffic in the discourse of humiliation. So Cohen, you felt that desire for him to get a certain amount of revenge back on them. And so I think he knows how to speak what gets under Trump's skin, is that language of domination and humiliation. And so making that reference to, like, I find it ironic that you're in Vietnam, after he just talked about him dodging the draft.
Yeah.
You know, so that sort of moment, I'm not sure how those play to the public, because it might seem more personalized and petty. On the other hand, because we're living in an administration that has so deeply personalized its politics, it's par for the course.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.